Okay, hi guys. I know I haven't been posting quite a lot recently, and that's kind of because I'm busy with going for competitions, but also planning for some other competitions as well. So today I'm going to talk briefly about breaking the three competition weekend barrier. So if you don't know who I am already, it's fine. It doesn't matter. This is completely WCA related, so it's not very important if you don't know what's going on, and you can just ignore this video if it appears in your suggested list for some reason, and if you're not Cuba. So, firstly, I notice it's not uncommon to see participants competing in two WCA sanctioned competitions on a weekend. And of course, it is less common for that to happen in two competitions in two separate countries or regions, but it's not very rare, right? But the three competition weekend, however, has been solved already, even though it's unknown whether the four competition weekend has been solved. It's not very well documented. So I'm just going to present my findings for a specific week, which I found it's actually it actually makes it very doable. So, well, not very, but there are some issues with it, but I've decided to try to carry out this plan. So that's what I'm going to share today. Yeah, anyway, the premise is that currently I have a regular day job, which is from Monday to Friday. And even though I want to maximize competition count, I don't really want to take leave on Friday or the subsequent Monday. So, of course, my day job only starts like sometime in the morning, like, after the sun rises. So, if I do happen to land in Singapore, like maybe at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., that's still kind of okay. But basically trying to avoid like the working hours period for Friday or Monday, which means I don't have to take leave. So exactly how many competitions can I compete in purely on Saturday and Sunday? That's what I'm trying to find out here. And we're going to assume that there's no teleportation. So if you're dealing with two different countries or regions, then you are really going to take a plane. Well, the fastest mode of transport is going to be by plane. So anyway, here are some definitions of what counts as a three competition weekend and what doesn't. So in Carmen Teo Binzia's profile, you can see that these three competitions over here, Penang Cube Masters, Singapore Marine Parade, and No Noise November Singapore, these three actually count as three competition weekend because Carmen competed in all three on Saturday or Sunday, or both, but that didn't happen. However, this is in my profile. So I competed in Singapore Mini, Sunway Velocity, as well as Singapore Max. But I actually went to Sunway Velocity only on the Monday. I only competed on Monday. So this, in my opinion, doesn't count. So I'm not going to count it for these kind of cases. And as you will see for the competitions I'm going to talk about later, you're not actually going to see something like this. But I'm just going to like preface this as like what counts and what doesn't. Okay, so it needs to be a case where you compete on either a Saturday or a Sunday. If not, it will not count as being part of the three competition weekend at all. So here are the competitions that I actually researched on. So for 17th of August, there's Guangzhou Quiet Day in China, Hong Kong Blind Legends in Hong Kong, Hsinchu Summer in Taiwan, as well as Summer Prakan Cube Open in Thailand. And Sunday is just these five competitions. And initially, this is what I registered for. So Mega Time Singapore actually came out quite early on. Like I'm not even sure when exactly, but I registered for that. And subsequently, Hong Kong Blind Legends also came out on WCA, and then I registered for that as well. Uh, and let's take a look at 18 August first, because I think that's a simpler case that we can solve. Okay, so suppose we were to exchange Mega Time Singapore 2024 for these two competitions, New Taipei Big Cube Day as well as PBQ Beijing. So the required flights would be from Hong Kong to Taiwan, and then from Taiwan, well, from Taoyuan Airport, TPE, and from there to Beijing Airport. Now, Beijing has two airports, so it can be either one, but actually, flying from Taoyuan only offers the option of going to the capital airport instead of the other one. So the question is this possible? And turns out that if we take a look at what we have in Hong Kong Blind Legends, the first event is 3x3 blindfolded first round from 9:45 to 11:45. Well, assuming that latest I end 11:45 and I take a cab to the airport, so it still takes around like 30 something minutes to get there. And then I need to check in like maybe 1 hour before, right? So that leaves around like 1.5 hours of buffer time. And it's actually quite possible for me to catch this flight to Taoyuan Airport, TPE. And yeah, so there are a few options over here. 1840 to 2030 is not really possible, but if we take a look at, well, 1235, 1250, those are like the likely options that I'm going to take. Actually, there's a lot more than this, so we need to look at this other case. So from Taiwan to Beijing, right? So in this case, I'm flying from, right, okay. So for this case, we are not considering going to Hsinchu yet. So for this particular case, we can actually use all of these. Okay, we can land in Taiwan no matter how late we want. Okay, so now we have 3 competitions at hand only. Okay, anyway, from Taipei to Beijing, well, or Taoyuan Airport to Beijing, there's this particular set of flights. Can leave at 1:05 or 1, and then you can land in Beijing around 4:30 to 4:35. And that should leave enough time to catch 3x3 FMC final. There's only 1 round, the first attempt. Okay, we go back to Saturday, 17th of August. If we were to keep Hong Kong Blind Legends and attempt to squeeze in 1 more competition, then it's going to start getting a bit harder. So we're going to try to add in the Thailand Com first and see what problems we have. So in this case, we have a 2-day competition. Okay, Samut Prakan is actually a 2-day competition. And the last event of the day, which is the first round, starts much later than the other 2 competitions. So pro tip, if you want to try to squeeze like 2 competitions in 1 day, of course, firstly, you need to make sure that the 2 locations are close enough by flight. And another thing is you can try for 2-day comms, because 2-day comms usually have like a first round that maybe starts at like 5 or 6 in the evening. And your first comms first round is probably going to be like in the morning, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., probably ending around 11 to 12 latest, which means you can kind of catch a flight in the middle of the 2. So here are your required flights from Hong Kong Airport to these 2 airports, both in Bangkok, and then from Bangkok to Taiwan, Taoyuan Airport. So would this be possible? So if this were possible, right, basically we have already solved the 4 competition weekend problem, right? So let's take a look at the first and last events of these 2 competitions respectively. And we actually find these 2 flights from Hong Kong, Bangkok, BKK. So you can actually catch one of these 2 flights to Bangkok at cross customs and then still make it in time for 5x5 first round. So everything is kind of fine, right? And next, from Bangkok to Taiwan, you can actually take the midnight flight, okay, on the next day, which is on 18 August, and land in Taoyuan Airport. And when you land in Taoyuan Airport, there is still some amount of time for you to get to 5x5 first round. And adding on to that, basically after you leave for 5x5 first round, you can use the flight that I've shown earlier, which is here. You can catch one of these 2 flights to go to Please Be Quiet Beijing. Right, okay. So this is a current solution from Hong Kong to Bangkok to Taoyuan Airport and then to Beijing. Okay, this is one of the solutions that I found, and I was going to execute this solution. But the question is, like, there are some minor concerns. So for Hong Kong, the competition venue is actually quite far from the airport. It's a 36-minute drive on Google Maps. And there's a potential traffic jam on the way to the airport, because even if you leave at like 11:45, maybe let's say give or take, assume that you're going to reach in an hour. You're going to reach the airport at like 12:45 maybe, even though that's kind of like pessimistic. I would say 12:15 or 12:30. Anyway, it's not impossible, just kind of risky. If your flight is at like 1:45 and you got to check in by 12:45, yeah, then you have to reach by 12:45. It's not as bad as you think. On the other hand, for Samut Cube Open, which is the Thailand com, your current registered participants is actually 40. Maybe when this video comes out, it might be more than 40, but if we look at the competitor limit, it's actually 130. So that's like less than half of the competitor limit has registered so far. So what we would expect is that the competition will potentially run ahead of schedule by quite a lot, meaning that in practice, there might not be enough time for me to reach Bangkok to compete in 5x5 first round. If I recall, that was the last event of that day. Yeah, because maybe the delegate might change the schedule a little bit depending on how many competitors participate at the competition on the day itself. So this boils down to one question: are there any other alternatives? And indeed, we have four. So alternative one is if I were to fly from Hong Kong directly to Taoyuan Airport and compete in Hsinchu Summer instead of the Thailand com. So I go Hsinchu Summer, New Taipei Big Cube Day, and then PBQ Beijing. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, of course, the ones reflected in red are basically the differences between the current alternative versus like whatever I've gone through before. So from Hong Kong to Taiwan, this is a little tight, but it's actually still possible. We find this cluster of flights around like late 1 p.m., like after 1:30, 1:40, 1:55, 1:40, 1:30, from Hong Kong to Taiwan Taoyuan Airport, which lands around something like 3:30 to 3:50. Yeah, something like this. So it's actually cutting really, really close to the last event, well, the last first round event of Hsinchu Summer Open, okay, which is Cube. Starts at 4:15 and ends at 5. It's cutting very, very close. So, well, it's not impossible. Maybe it's a little risky. Yeah. Okay, alternative two is instead of competing in the Taiwan com altogether, like we just ditch Taiwan altogether and go to Guangzhou. Okay, so we go to Guangzhou Quiet Day, which is also an FMC com. The good thing about FMC com is that actually FMC is 3 hours starting from 6 p.m. onwards, right? So actually that gives us a very huge advantage when it comes to dealing with like squeezing many comms in 2 days. Because after the Hong Kong com ends, I can just run to Guangzhou, right? Well, not physically run, but yeah, you get the idea. So we're going to compete in Guangzhou Quiet Day and Guangzhou Big Cubes. This kind of also poses some problems, as you can see. So first thing is that if we check the flights itself, we notice that both flights are actually not suitable. One is early in the morning and the other one is all the way at night, which means I'm pretty much going to miss FMC altogether. But we need to know that flying isn't the only mode of transport. So Hong Kong is actually relatively close to Guangzhou. And we can actually take the high-speed rail from Hong Kong to Guangzhou, from West Kowloon Station to Guangzhou Nan. And it takes like 1 hour plus. So 1 hour and a few minutes. And they also come at regular intervals. So this list is clearly not exhaustive. I could actually find the one where maybe I leave at like 5 or was it 4 or 5, and I can still reach Guangzhou around like 5 or 6. So it's really not too bad of an idea. Well, okay, from Guangzhou to Beijing, well, same country, right? Okay, if we ignore the controversy, yeah. So from Guangzhou to Beijing, if I compete in 4x4 first round at Guangzhou Big Cubes, and then later I compete in PBQ Beijing, okay, which is FMC, I find these set of flights, and it's not exhaustive, by the way. There's like just way too many to count, but pretty much you can find flights within this region, like around taking off at 1 p.m., 1:30 p.m., 1:40, and landing in Beijing around like 4-ish or 5-ish, and still enough time because this is domestic flight as well, right? So still enough time for me to make FMC attempt 1. Okay. I'm not going to talk too much about 1 and 2 because they seem quite doable. It's just kind of risky, right? As for alternative 3, what if I go to Guangzhou quiet day and then I go to Taiwan and I go back to Beijing, a different part of China, right? So like, yeah, I go from China to Taiwan and back to China. Okay, and we can also do the reverse as well. But unfortunately, 3 and 4 are kind of like not possible at all because there are actually no suitable flights between Taiwan Taoyuan Airport and Guangzhou. I've kind of checked the other airport as well, the Songshan Airport in Taiwan, but that's a relatively small airport, so I don't think you can expect much from that as well. Basically, 3 and 4 are kind of like out of the question right now. So here's some additional information because I'll be flying from Singapore and I will have to return to Singapore on 19th of August in the morning. So these are just the flights that I'm more or less confirmed going to take if I were to fly to Hong Kong and fly back from either Hong Kong, Taiwan, or China, Beijing. Yeah, okay, some more additional information. So some of the solutions were actually not considered because I've already registered for Hong Kong Blind Legends and the registration has closed as of now. So I can't withdraw from that and I'm not going to consider any variant or any solution that pertains to me dropping from Hong Kong Blind Legends. Yeah. However, I'm still able to withdraw from Mega Time Singapore since registration closes on 2nd of August. And in conclusion, this original solution is a valid solution to the 4 competition weekend, even though there is a risk of the Thailand com running ahead of schedule. So 1 and 2 actually saves the cost of 1 flight because I need to actually stay in China or Taiwan. So it's at the expense of accommodation cost. 1 is going to risk me missing Hsinchu Summer Open because in case it runs ahead of schedule, right, then I'm going to miss Cube. And on the other hand, alternative 2 has no major issue. But in general, it's not very easy to register for speed solving competitions held in China, specifically the Big Cubes Com in Guangzhou. So it depends on whether I get it or not. And 3 and 4 are proven to be physically impossible, as I mentioned earlier. So TLDR, we solved the 4 competition weekend, but at what cost? Thank you.